All right. Well, here we go. And welcome to another episode of Aftershocks on AfterShocksPodcast.com. And our guests on today's podcast are coming to us from the City of Angels, and they're ready to drop their new full length titled Year of the Rat. Comes out October 16th on Upstate Records and Blood Blast Distribution. We got K and Ben from metallic hardcore outfit Matriarchs. What's up, guys? How you doing? Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up? What's going on? All right. Well, let's talk about Year of the Rat, man. We're both, me and Chris are really digging this record. I'll just give you my little quick, breakdown of it, I guess. Obviously, it's a lot different than the first album, Scandalous Joints. Much different sound you got on this one. To me, it's got really a great blend of a lot of sounds that I love. I'm talking like, all types of metal, groove metal, new metal. You got New York hardcore in there. You got the 90s beatdown stuff in there. And then even at times, it goes into like a doomy sludge sort of, parts too, which is great. It's really just a really great potpourri sort of all the different types of metal and hardcore. And of course, Kay, with your vocals in there, fits right in with everything. I mean, not just your screams, but the clean parts as well. I really love. And but the thing I really love about the record more than anything is that it's very unpredictable. From song to song, you don't know what's coming, what type of tempo, what type of vocal approach. And just as a listener, I think that really keeps me especially dialed in, and it's interesting because of the suspense. You don't know what's coming next. So just I guess we'll start with you, Kay. Talk a bit about first of all, how did you guys kind of come together? Because I know, Kay, you just kind of joined the band this year, right? So how did you guys sort of connect with each other?
So I guess Ben could talk a little bit more about that. But I make TikTok videos. I take the trending sounds on TikTok and I turn them into like metalcore versions so that the metal community has sounds to use for their own TikToks. It's something that we kind of figured out that we could do as a niche on there. And so Ben kind of found me through TikTok and he was like, hey, do you want to maybe feature on a song? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I would love to do a feature. And then one feature led to another feature, led to another feature. And then eventually he was like, well, do you want to do a whole record? And then he was like, do you want to join the band? And I was like, let's go. Let's go, baby.
Nice. Hell yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Ben, is that, you found her on TikTok?
Yes. Before that, we've been without a singer for about a year and a half, I think. And I was just getting my friends to do vocals on stuff. I got Neil from Cutthroat. He did the first one. And then I had Frankie from Amir do one. And I had Mike Terry from Volumes and Bury Your Dead do one. And that was like fun. But once I laid eyes on one video of her, I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm just going to see what's up. I hit her up and she was open to it. And we've been just cranking out tunes. I mean, we're still writing now. So yeah, it's been really cool.
That's awesome. Well, like I was mentioning before, it is a big difference from the first record, from Scandalous Joints. Much different sound. That had more of the traditional sort of hardcore sound on that record. So what made you kind of pivot, Ben, over from that over to Year of the Rat in terms of changing up the sound a little bit? I mean, I think it's a great move you did, by the way, but just curious as what switched it up.
Well, for me, it was a couple things. The first thing is like these songs I've been working on for a long time. Some of them are actually kind of old. And the whole thing behind it is I had kind of like a Matriarchs for me is just, that's whatever I wanted to do, like in aggressive music, that's like kind of my outlet for it. Now that it's got the K's joined and it's becoming more of a actual band. But before it was just kind of like a studio project, and I was just kind of expressing myself. I didn't expect it to go anywhere. We had a band, and they were all featured on the record and everything. But I was writing most of everything. I write most of everything anyway. So I always expected there to be some sort of kind of just a natural progression. I don't want to put out the same thing over and over again. I love hardcore. I come from hardcore and beatdown. That's my love. But I also love metal. I love Meshuggah. I love all kinds of different more technically proficient bands and stuff like that. So I mean, as I got better as a musician, I wanted it to kind of up the ante as much as I could.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, Ben, I just want to build on that a little bit. I know a lot of musicians, and once they become the the Dave Mustaine of the business, so to speak, of their business. Once they become the dictator of their domain, it is awfully hard for them to let go and bring other people in. What was it? Was it just hearing Kay and hearing what she brought that made you willing to give that up, or is it something that you probably still have to fight somewhat, like when you're in the studio?
I think just getting to know her while we were writing, and just this entire time, we established trust really fast, you know? So I just know, because I've been doing music and bands for a really long time now, like, you know, just because you have like kind of an idea of how things are supposed to go, it doesn't mean you're right. Like, I mean, there's a many ways to do something. And as far as like, you know, being in a band, it's about making sure everybody's expressing themselves and feeling like it's, you know, like actually owning it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really about that. So the minute she joined, you know what I mean? It's her baby too. I want her to care. You know what I mean? So obviously we're gonna care about each other's opinions and like make sure everybody's kind of heard. It's never been an issue for me. The Dave Mustaine thing was kind of, I mean, I wouldn't call that, I'm not that, but that was kind of thrown on me. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for people that kind of felt the same way and like were enjoying the music that I was creating. And that's kind of where we're at now, where I'm finding the right musicians that are into it and like ready to roll. So, you know, we're at the best that we've ever been. I mean, sound wise and everything.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And where do you stand with that, Kay? Are you because you've been kind of the dictator of your own domain as well, not necessarily with music, but as far as your career, which you gloriously glazed over like you're a person on Fiverr taking 20s to do TikTok videos, when really you have this long career of really big photography and production type things. You know, but I guess it's the same question for you. You've had your own, business more or less that you've been doing, and now you come into being a team player in a team. Was easy transition, hard transition, or normal transition?
Yeah, so it was an exciting transition. So I have another project called Chasing Satellites, and that's similar to what Matriarchs was, a studio project, and that was Chasing Satellites was like my baby. And I've never had like band members for it. I haven't played with a band or in a band since 2014 when I lived in Australia, so this was the first band to approach me in, 6 years and say, hey, do you want to be a part of something? And the fact that it was a local band in LA, it wasn't something that was like, on the other side of the country or even in another country that was like, hey, do you want to do this internet thing? This was like an opportunity for me to showcase live and play live shows. And yeah, unfortunately this year we're not really able to play live shows, but it's still a chance to practice with a band and write music with a band and write music with other people. And I think that has been the most exciting thing for me, is to become a part of something that is already, like Ben has already established this band, so it's something that I just came into, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah. Awesome. And you just mentioned your other band, K Chasing Satellites, that you've done, which is completely different, obviously, more of sort of a post-hardcore kind of sound to it. So, I mean, as a vocalist, how challenging is it when you're going from one completely different style to another? I mean, is it hard really to sort of keep the styles separate, especially when you're writing lyrics or coming up with an approach that you want to do for a song?
So style-wise, Matriarchs is obviously heavier than Chasing Satellites, and my previous band was a melodic hardcore band. So I love hardcore music. I grew up listening to bands like Hatebreed, and so I have a lot of influences there. So it's not difficult. It's just the music is different. So I naturally want to write in a different style, if that makes sense. But I do want to bring my elements of like clean vocals into the hardcore stuff, because honestly, I've always wanted to be a singer, and I've been screaming for over a decade. I did it as a joke when I was 14 years old and figured out I could do it. And I was like, well, I guess I'm a metal screamer now. So I love metal screaming and stuff, but I've only been singing for about 4 years, like clean, like properly singing, with the help of, amazing producers and things like that. So I'm still improving and still learning how to sing, but I want to bring that into this heavier music because it's something I really, really am passionate about wanting to do. So definitely trying to bring more cleans into the hardcore world.
Sure. No, it sounds great, man. Speaking of LA hardcore, I just, just to go into that for a second, I think what you're hearing these days out of there is really, it's as good as it's been in quite some time, in my opinion. I mean, obviously if you go back to the Venice Beach days when you had all those crossover bands, that really sort of, to me, were the catalyst of LA hardcore. I mean, I know a lot of people say Black Flag and Circle Jerks, but they didn't really have that metallic sound that you're hearing now in hardcore. And of course, we're talking about bands like Suicidal or Excel, Beowulf, Neighborhood Watch, all those great bands. And then since then, there's been some great bands too. Obviously, Downset in the 90s, great band, Strife. But I would say over the last 10 to 15 years, the scene's really grown really exponentially. I mean, we're seeing really a lot of great bands coming out of LA now, the hardcore scene now. I mean, obviously, you guys with Matriarchs, you got Terror, who's been there for a while, Count Time, the new band Arcline, and of course, Ben, the other band, you're in Cutthroat, who I saw a few years ago with Prong and Powerflow. Man, the guys killed it. And there's also a great website out of LA, Noeca, which is like the place to read up on new and upcoming hardcore bands. So I guess, Ben, give us your opinion on what you're seeing since you've been in the LA scene for a while now, what you're seeing these days. And do you think it really can have that same influence and impact that it had back, in the 80s and 90s?
I think that there's kind of like everything kind of goes in cycles and ebbs and flows. And right now, just given everything going on, I think people in general LA is kind of a weird place to market hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, as far as like the lifestyle, the culture and everything like that, it kind of really conflicts with a lot of the
mm-hmm.
Hollywood societal kind of thing. So it's difficult to find an audience anyway. And, the better things are, the less people are pissed off, the less there's a market for angry music. And I think
Sure.
that now that enough shit has happened, like, people are broke, people have been stuck inside, they're more frustrated, they're more receptive to someone screaming and like, talking about something that they're going to connect with because they're pissed off. And I think that a lot of bands have been like working real hard. I mean, like Arcline, for example, Marty, he actually played guitar for Matriarchs for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we played in LA bands for many years before that as well. These are all guys that have been working on this for years, but right now the time is kind of coming where bands are going to, have that opportunity to take off because the people are receptive to it, at least around here. I think they're becoming more receptive to it.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I agree with you with the marketing perspective. I actually had a hardcore label there in the mid 2000s. I signed Count Time. I put out their first record, and yeah, it was very challenging. Obviously, like you said, with the marketing ways, no doubt. So that's good to see that's changed. That's awesome. Speaking, let's talk about your other band, Cutthroat. I mean, at the start of the year, you guys were on the Persistence tour there with, what a great tour that was. Agnostic Front, Gorilla Biscuits, Billy Bio, Wisdom and Chains. What a tour, man. Tell us a bit about playing on that tour, and what did you take away from that you could probably now use, and put towards Matriarchs when you guys are looking to tour maybe overseas one day?
I mean, that was an experience of a lifetime. I mean, that's an understatement. As far as like,
sure.
The biggest thing is just, well, it was actually kind of, I'm kind of spoiled because this tour, the vibe was so positive and everybody was just kind of on the same level as far as what we were out there to do, have a good time. Like there was literally no problems. And you had about 30 people,
Awesome.
cramped up in buses and stuff, going town to town and whatever. And it was a party literally every day. And what I took away from that is, I think beforehand, the European tour I did beforehand, it was really where I started learning, just about coexisting with a bunch of different personalities and how that works. And that being really first and foremost the most important aspect of that whole endeavor, like touring, because it's all about getting to know people and being a stand-up person. You know what I mean? Like that gets you very far in hardcore. Like just working hard and not being a dick.
Yeah, totally.
And that's basically what you take away from it. It's pretty simple, in my opinion.
Sure. Nice. Now, Kay, I'll throw this one to you. The pandemic has just fucked everybody in every which way possible. There's no real way to put it other than that. a band with a new sound that wants to be a live band and you're stuck at home, that just is horrible. I have to imagine it's doubly horrible for you because you also have the other side where, having the photography career. And I don't think I know everybody talks about music and they talk about, well, my band can't tour and we're just going to make these videos, whatever. Photographers have the double whammy because there's not even a sideline you could do necessarily. There's nothing to take pictures of that you can do right now. So talk about how hard this has been for you as both a creative musician and a creative eye to maintain and keep going forward, with a semblance of your career.
Yeah, so it's been super interesting, honestly, and I know people are struggling and people are out of work, people got furloughed and laid off and blah blah blah, and everybody's struggling, but to be honest with you guys, I feel like I've been thriving during this pandemic.
Okay, great.
I feel like as a freelancer, and I think I also have a podcast called Project Freelance where I interview other freelancers about how they built their businesses. So I think that freelancers adapted faster than everybody else because I already worked from home. I have a home office. I work from inside my bedroom. I have a desk set up, studio set up, all that stuff. I just figured, well, I'm already doing this. I might as well figure out what I'm going to do in order to keep being able to pay my rent and make money and save money and do all this stuff for the future. And so I went more into video editing, which, I already have been video editing, but I just did more of that because a lot of people brought their online courses. They started doing online courses. They started doing all these things online. So they needed editors. So I started editing. I started doing voiceover work, things like that. So I've done some ads, some video games, some stuff like that. So it's been super exciting. And then I just dove straight, deeper into music, I obviously with Matriarchs, we did, a full album during quarantine. And then I also put out a 6-track solo EP called Pandemic about the pandemic because I was like, well, this is affecting everybody. So it's very relatable. So we might as well write some music about this. So did that. So I've been keeping busy enough so that I'm kind of distracted from what's going on, if that makes sense. Cause I didn't really want to think about it. And then to be honest, now video work is starting to pick up again. I've shot 3 or 4 music videos in the past couple of months for bands. And I had a goal at the beginning of the year to shoot 10 music videos, and I'm already about to pass that and just continue on. So I'm super stoked about, the opportunities I've gotten despite us being in a global pandemic.
Sure. Have the videos been a different style though? Because I mean, are they the home videos where you're piecing together different performances? Is that what it's been?
It's been interesting. So I flew up to Yakima, Washington to film a music video for a band up there, and it was basically a singer who had hired musicians, and I wore a mask the whole time and tried to keep my distance from everybody. But nobody in Yakima, Washington has COVID, so I mean, it was pretty chill. They're pretty secluded out there. And then last week I shot a music video for a guy that's actually producing my music with Chasing Satellites. His name's Lenny J. He also writes his own music, so he's got a solo record coming out. So he wanted a music video done, and he played all the instruments on the song. So it was me and him in a warehouse, and I just filmed him play the drums, play guitar, do vocals and bass, and all in one location. So it's been very COVID compliant, if you will, but it's definitely been quite a challenge. So I'll say that.
Sure, very cool. And Ben, one of the guys that we know in the business that we like we like him a lot, is the owner of your label, Mario. Talk a little bit about not only his passion for the music, because he's that odd bird that is successful, but at the same time is passionate. He's not just signing bands that he sees 1,000 sales to. He has to believe in it before he actually brings the band in. So talk about working with a guy like that, and talk about how working like that with a guy like that is either beneficial or more difficult during the pandemic when you can't get out there and do what you do best.
Well, I mean, I've known Mario for a while, so and I'm an independent business owner for 10 years. So we both kind of come from a very similar mentality. We discussed everything before I even pitched anything. We had been talking about, me making new music and then me finding K and all that. So I was kind of updating him as my friend. And then it was just kind of a no-brainer for me to, you know, offer it up to him, and he, you know, he was more than happy to, and has been a huge help. He's like super into it and has been really helping and pushing and using all of his like resources to help us out. He works pretty hard for his bands actually. So it's been awesome.
Awesome.
Much better experience than I've had in the past. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Nice. Well, I mean, Kay, you know, you've got really a quite interesting story. Moving from a kid from Oklahoma as a teen to Abu Dhabi, that is quite the change in many ways. Tell us a bit about your experience with that in terms, especially, you know, of course, in terms of music too, going from, you know, the United States to Dubai at such a young age as a teenager.
Yeah, so I feel like I mostly missed out on like TV shows that were popular, but as far as music goes, I was on like torrent sites anyway. So I found all my music that I listened to through like mp3boo.com. I would basically judge bands by their album art, and if I thought your album art was cool, I would listen to your music, you know? So that's how I found like For Today and In Heart's Wake and like all these different post-hardcore and metalcore bands that I know and love, you know? And while I was over there, I started doing vocal covers. And so I kind of got to know bands by their music by doing vocal covers of their songs on YouTube. And so I was in Abu Dhabi and Dubai studying film, graduated high school, started studying film over there, joined a band called Nightmare Overdose. That was my first project that I was a part of. We didn't really go very far because it's really difficult in the Middle East to like get your band known. We played like one show and it was sick. It was like in a car factory.
Nice.
we did what we could, you know. You play anywhere you can that will let you put a PA in, and so that was a really cool experience. But like I said, we didn't really get anywhere. And then when I moved to Australia, I moved to Perth, Western Australia, and started going to venues like YMCA HQ, which is like a notorious venue. It's like the Chain Reaction of Australia.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So whenever bands from the US would come through Australia and play Perth, they would recognize me from my vocal covers, and then they would be like, hey, do you want to come on stage and do guest vocals with us? So I got to like do guest vocals for all these bands and got to know them, and that led to me ending up like touring with bands as a videographer and doing that kind of thing. And then when I moved out to California, I moved down the street from Chain Reaction because I wanted to start shooting more shows. So I just kind of put myself in the place to be a part of the music scene and be a part of the industry. So going from Abu Dhabi as a 16-year-old, like, and as a gay person, like that was quite a challenge.
I can imagine.
But you know, got through, loved the place. I went back earlier this year to, you know, check it out as a photographer, you know, and went to Dubai and did a 1 hour long POV photography video just shooting around Dubai city, and it was absolutely beautiful. But as far as music goes, I don't feel like I missed anything. I feel like I was pretty in touch with the bands of the time back then.
Sure. What brought you back to the States? I mean, I've lived outside the States. I lived in Korea for a couple of years, and I've been to Australia. And so I know that pain of coming back. I mean, I was in the military, so I sort of really didn't have a choice. But if I would have had a choice, I'd still be speaking Korean and I'd still be living in Korea. You know, what was it that brought you back?
Well, so I graduated with my bachelor's in film production in Perth, Australia, and my dad was trying to figure out what he was going to do. I was living with him at the time. He works for an oil company. He just hit his like 30 years with his company, which is awesome, you know. And I figured, well, what am I going to do after I graduate? Do I want to stay in Australia? My dad was thinking about going back to the Middle East, and I was like, well, I definitely don't want to do that right now. I kind of want to like live my life and be who I am comfortably and not be afraid to be myself, you know?
Right.
And I thought like California is the place where everybody else went to make it. So I might as well go out there and give it a shot and see if I can make it in entertainment and in music. So came out here, and I love California. You know, I'm not in LA. I'm like 45 minutes south of LA, but like I love being close to LA. I love being close to all the craziness and, you know, all the big concerts and that kind of stuff. So I figured this was a better place to come than Oklahoma. for sure. 'Cause I tried going back there when I first moved back to the States, and I was there for like, I don't know, a week and a half, and I was like, this ain't it. I can't get any work out here. Like, nobody cares about videography in Oklahoma, really, you know, unless you're in like Oklahoma tourism or something like that. But as far as like music photography and stuff goes, I figured California was the best place to go. So I came out here. I knew one band. They were called Hardest. They're from Orange County, and that was where I started. I just like met up with them, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, you should go to Chain Reaction." And then I ended up moving down the street from Chain and just diving into music, you know. So yeah, California, it's the place to be right now.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. And Ben, I mean, you mentioned before you've been an entrepreneur. I know you've got a PR management firm called Knuckleheads. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone about that, a little bit about your company?
Well, basically, the goal, Knuckleheads is kind of an offshoot of my original company, which is Five Rings Productions, and I basically set out to kind of offer every resource. This was before Fiverr, by the way. So like before Fiverr and Upwork and all these things that started coming up. But basically, I wanted to like kind of provide a one-stop shop. So like content marketing, content creation, web design, EPK design, any of the stuff that you need as a band. You know, if you don't know how to do it, I was like, you know, selling those, you know, reselling those kind of products and stuff like that. So I've been doing that for years.
Cool.
And then I offshot it once I successfully was like, okay, I'm in 3 bands and I'm managing this and I'm not falling apart, which, you know, now I've been doing this for 2 years now where I've had 3 bands going at the same time. I decided, okay, well, let's start trying to represent those bands and kind of like doing my own PR, doing my own pushes and stuff like that. And trying to get, you know, endorsements and all that. Basically what a label does. I'm kind of like easing my way into that. So I've been working on that for the last year or so. And that's what Knuckleheads is. It's basically, you know, we partnered with Upstate on our release with Matriarchs.
Oh, okay.
And I'm working on hopefully doing some more releases with some other names eventually.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Well, you know, I emailed, you know, Mario yesterday, and I told him that, you know, that out of all the Upstate bands that I've heard, you know, which has been, it's a lot, and we've obviously, me and Chris have done a bunch of interviews with a bunch of those bands too. I really think you guys have the most potential to take it to that next level. I mean, I'm not just saying that, I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. You know, I mean, you got a unique, exciting sound, and you know, the music. I mean, the band, your media presence is solid. Obviously, you're on a great label with Mario and Kim there in Upstate. You got Blood Blast distribution. I mean, the foundation really is set there, but of course, it always comes down to how hungry and dedicated, right, the bands are in order to get there. And of course, like you guys are both, like you said, Ben, you're in 3 bands. So what's your guys' plans in terms of what you're willing and planning to do once, you know, live music does open back up? I mean, is Matriarchs going to be the main focus for the both of you going forward?
As far as, well, I'm going to be, I think both of us we're kind of on the same page with it. Like we're going to make it work. We just got to work with schedules. It's no, I mean, usually with that stuff, you know, 90 days in advance, like if you're going to do something, you're trying to book stuff. I mean, I'm trying to book the summer for next year right now. So like anything that happens, you know, it's all communication and stuff like that. I try to keep everything as far as Matriarchs and Cutthroat and all that stuff. We're trying to keep it all on the same team. So like there's communication and there's no conflicts or anything like that. That's how I do it.
Cool. Very cool, man. Well, yeah, everybody needs to check out Year of the Rat, the new full length for Matriarchs. It's out October 16th through Upstate Records and Blood Blast distribution. And once you guys go ahead, pick a song off the album. We'll play a clip for the listeners and tell us a bit about, you know, what it means, and we'll close things out with that.
That's UK. Go for it.
All right. Well, I mean, I love Sleep a lot. I think, you know, that song to me is like super strong, and we just put a music video out for it, and it's definitely one of my favorites. You've also got like Hollow, we've got Dogma. I mean, honestly, like you could pick any of the songs, and I think people will dig them. Ben, what do you think?
Well, we do have a single coming out, I think next week. We're doing Bombaclat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if you want to play that one, I mean, that's personally my favorite song to play.
Okay.
So
yeah, let's go with Bombaclat.
It's a weird song. It's kind of like like what I was thinking when I wrote it was like, what would the Deftones sound like if they were a beatdown band? And like that's kind of like what I got.
Very cool. All right, well let's check it out. Here's Bombaclat from Matriarchs, and thanks for listening to Aftershocks. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.